All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the pre-show. Only going to be a short one today, getting back into the groove for getting the stream back up and running for this 2025. But well done to our technical team, first and foremost. Owen, you're an MVP. This one's for you, buddy. Smattering of applause for you. Also a smattering for Josh Beatty. Got things working on our side as well.
Thank you.
Against all the odds. People said he'd never do it. They said it's not going to happen. Well,
those people.
Oh, I don't know why we hang out with them. So, yeah. Look, remember, this show's about you and your thoughts on things. So, throughout the day, do want to hear, where you're listening from, where you're watching from, and plenty of opportunities, of course, for you to share your thoughts on stuff and things that have been happening. Quite a few head scratches today.
Oh, goodness me.
Some really unusual placements. Also, stuff missing that maybe you would have thought otherwise would have been more popular.
True, we haven't had a missing in action story in a little while.
That is true. All right, we'll have to start thinking about that one. In fact, tell you what, this is your reward for joining us a little bit early. What stories do you think we should be talking about today? You can put it in the chat. You can send us a text, 8168 with the first word REMA. But what stories do you think we should be talking about just based on what? Impact, relevance, whatever it is. Throw them into the chat, send us a text, and we'll have a look. We'll see where they lie. Maybe they just say outside the top 25 or so. That tends to be the outer limit of what we check week to week. But would love to know your thoughts on all that kind of stuff. How are we looking on your side, Mr. Beatty?
Yeah, just did a quick test. Looking good. I think we're good to go.
Nice. All right, cool. Well, as you can hear, I popped in the weather before. So if you're listening to your radio at the same time and wondering how I'm talking twice at once, that's why.
Commitment if you're watching and listening via the radio.
Hey, I just appreciate you guys. That's all I can say. All right, we better switch ourselves over to live and get ready to, start the show proper. So thanks again for joining us, and great to have your company in the stream, you ambassadors of new technology and such like. When you hear us again, we'll be live for the rest of the country.
Live on air and online, trending with Andrew Curtis.
Hey, that's me. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Trending, back for our second show of 2025. And most importantly, back on the stream, baby. So if you want to watch the show along with us today, of course, you're more than welcome to do so. This is our way of reaching new audiences, expanding the capability of your beloved Rema Media. Just so you know, my long-term plan is that all of our shows are able to do something like this at some point during their shows. Be able to relate with you. And so if you do want to join us, of course, thankfully, I'm not doing this alone. And the man making it all happen behind the scenes, one Joshua Beatty Esquire.
More so Owen, but yes, I am here. Shout out to Owen, but also shout out to you if you are here on the stream at the moment. Or, of course, if you are listening the traditional way, we also welcome you on into Trending. Get in touch either way, either with a comment below if you are watching the stream, or, of course, super simple, to text 8168 keyword REMA.
And you can find those streams both on our REMA Facebook pages and, of course, on our YouTube channels as well. If this is your first time joining us for Trending for 2025, maybe the first time ever, let me just quickly catch you up on what the show is all about. In fact, last week we discovered the show has kind of an unofficial theme song.
Things that make you go, things that make you go,
That's right, dance along. We don't actually have a chart show on Rema, let alone a dance music show. So this is the closest we're going to get, even though we had to go with a song from like about 20 years ago. Things that make you go, Now, what inspires that in you? Well, for me, it's when there's a story that does or doesn't line up with the amount of coverage we've seen on our major news services. So something might have happened that you think, wow, that seems really, really important. And yet you go to your major news services in New Zealand or around the world and you just, well, it doesn't seem to be that important, not that popular. On the other hand, sometimes you see a story everywhere, smeared across the front pages of the newspapers or front pages of websites, and then, of course, leads the nightly news. But, I mean, you don't really care. it's not really in your wheelhouse at all. And so this show gives us a chance to look at all those things across a manner of different subcategories of story, shall we say. Josh, without giving too much away, obviously you've looked ahead. You know what we're talking about today. Can you give us a bit of a teaser? What's something that made you go, today?
Ooh, we are going to, in our entertainment section, talk about a new film called The Gorge. We've looked at a number of different shows and movies. Very much there's been a theme of espionage recently. I thought this one was in line with that kind of story. Turns out, not the case.
Now, how popular would a story about a new movie be? You're going to find that out when you watch along with us today. Also, there are some stories about protests this week. What protests may have been covered? But more importantly, too, how important do you think they were for other New Zealanders? Was it like the number one thing on everybody's mind? Or was it just kind of more of an ancillary thing that they Googled in their spare time on their lunch breaks? We're going to find that all out together. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's go.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Our first story, we're actually going to go internationally today with a news service I find quite entertaining to follow along with because I think the overall worldview behind it quite different from most of our other news services, say in the US or the UK. We're going to go to the island. Of course, the island is the English translation for Al Jazeera.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there you
The
go.
island.
Something learnt, and it's only 9 minutes into the show.
Woohoo!
So yes, Al Jazeera, the island, and very interesting news organization because, of course, it is Qatari funded, and that's got a whole connotation of boogeyman under the bed behind it. On the one hand, some people have said that their English media coverage is actually top-notch, really good stuff, better than the BBC, all that kind of thing. However, sometimes the stories and the way they're presented on the English news compared to, say, the Arabic news, are a bit different. So, with that in mind, you know the number one news story on Al Jazeera over the last week is actually regarding Ukraine. And, of course, the discussions that have been going on between the US and Russia with, who did they forget to invite? It was US was there, Russia was there,
Could it have been
Ukraine war.
I can't think. It's probably wasn't important.
Nah, exactly. If it was important, I'd remember. Let's see, first and foremost, how Al Jazeera covered this story, and maybe we'll learn a little something about who feels like they were maybe missed out of the discussion process.
A few weeks ago, the meeting the US Secretary of State is in Saudi Arabia to attend wouldn't have been possible. After Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the Biden administration stopped all high-level dialogue with Moscow. But after a 90-minute phone call with Vladimir Putin last week, President Donald Trump has sent Marco Rubio to meet senior Russian officials in Riyadh. It seems Trump plans to defrost years of icy US-Russia relations.
The presidents agreed that it's necessary to resume dialogue on all issues that can be resolved one way or another with the participation of Russia and the United States. The Ukrainian settlement was mentioned. The situation in the Middle East was also mentioned.
But at what cost to Ukraine and Europe? President Volodymyr Zelensky has reiterated that nothing about Ukraine should be decided without Ukraine's involvement.
That's who they forgot. They forgot Ukraine. Man, that's good. It's not going to keep me up overnight. All right.
He's in the United Arab Emirates and will travel to Riyadh on Wednesday, but says he won't attend the Rubio-Lavrov meeting.
Ukraine will not participate. Ukraine knew nothing about it. Ukraine assesses any negotiations about Ukraine without Ukraine as having no result. We cannot recognize any things or agreements about us without us.
Europe's leaders, also excluded, are in emergency mode. Alarm that President Trump is unilaterally collapsing a united transatlantic front against Russia extends to fears the US might abandon Europe completely.
We must ensure that Europe is strong, sovereign, and stands up straight to the challenges of the future. This involves the question of how we can continue to support Ukraine and ensure that it is not left alone now. I am sure that we can develop a clear position on this.
The UK Prime Minister confirms Britain was ready to send troops to Ukraine to enforce any peace deal, but Poland's Prime Minister says Warsaw would not. The tectonic plates of European security are shifting quickly. If it's to be heard in this unpredictable new reality, speaking with one voice is Europe's first challenge. Rory Challens, Al Jazeera.
Fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff. Now, this was partly inspired by, again, a story on Al Jazeera, which also provided that video coverage just there, that the number one article had the headline, "It is not Trump that betrayed Ukraine."
Yeah, interesting that the article also begins that, the promise from Donald Trump, at least during the campaign, that was within the first 24 hours he would stop that war. He didn't, lo and behold. But he has also made quite significant steps, at least it seems, to use, the word. It's trending in that direction.
Yeah, well, this is right. Now, one of the concerns, of course, and you heard a few of them being mentioned there, was the degree to which the Trump administration seems to be favoring a Russian interpretation, perhaps, of the conflict, or a Russia-defined metric for success. Now, if we're really going to take a pragmatic tone on this. I've thought about this a lot regarding the Ukraine conflict. I feel in some ways that things like the First and Second World War have given most of us, especially in the Western world, a rather distorted view of how wars are often resolved, i.e. the good guys win and the bad guys lose. The good guys get everything and the bad guys get nothing. Most conflicts throughout history haven't ended that way. There tends to be some kind of a murky stalemate. If you look at Vietnam, that was very much an example of that. Also, even the Korean War, we ended up with the division of the North and the South. And so even with Ukraine right now, it's very easy to think, well, we want a situation where, I think for most of us, we would rather have Ukraine have its pre-war boundaries reestablished and, Russia kicked out on its backside. It's probably not going to happen that way. Now, that is a pragmatic response to it. Most wars, as I say, are not resolved just by one side getting everything they want and the other side going away with their tail between their legs. So I feel like that's what's likely here. But to what extent will Ukraine accept something like that? And as you've heard from Volodymyr Zelensky, if they're not involved in these discussions at the first part, will they even agree? And will they try and continue the conflict without US support?
If you want to get in touch on this topic, feel free, by the way, 8168 with the keyword REMA via the text, or of course you can get in touch if you're watching the stream. Down below, leave a comment in the chat. It also strikes me, Andrew, maybe just to quickly wrap this up, that the other thing that the First and Second World War have taught us is that we don't want another world war.
Sure.
And so I think there is also a lot of work by the other parties outside of Russia and Ukraine to not let it develop to that point.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
And now for something completely different. As we head back to New Zealand for this one, what were the most popular news stories in this country? Here's your first head scratcher of the day. If you could pick this one, well done to you. You are a better man than I am. The number one news story that featured on One News, some would say our premier national broadcaster, was regarding Ferg Burger. And so I'm going to bring this story up now for those of you who are watching along on the stream, but for everybody else, of course, you'll be able to track along with what we're talking about here. The number one most clicked on news story had nothing to do with the economy, with Ukraine, with whether or not the Prime Minister wore a T-shirt over his suit. No, it was all regarding an apology for an inappropriate labelling of a customer receipt, Josh.
Yes, so Ferg Burger, obviously a very well-known establishment in Queenstown.
Yep.
Offers burgers, great burgers. Had a burger before from Ferg Burger, but very popular. And so it seems that to differentiate between customers,
yes.
One particular staff member used as it's defined here in the article, a racial slur.
Seems like a little bit of a faux pas, doesn't it?
Just a little.
Just a touch. So I had a thought for a moment about whether or not I'd ask you guys to, chime in on what you think the slur might have been, but realized that's a great way to get a violation with the Broadcasting Standards Authority, so we won't do that. No, Roxy Fu was there. She's a Taiwanese tourist, and so she'd been told Ferg Burger was the place to go. And, written on her receipt to help identify her, Ching Chang.
Yep.
That one just kind of hangs in the air, doesn't it? It feels like the kind of thing that happens when you just have a stupid student involved who wasn't thinking about what they're doing.
Well, they didn't think that this would be seen. They were not thinking.
In my defense,
big
Your
picture.
Honor, I didn't think anyone would hear me being racist.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. Carry on.
Oh, well, the bit that stands out to me that I particularly highlighted is, so this went viral online because a picture of the receipt was taken and then outrage ensued.
Sure.
Say what you will about, online outrage. But one thing that I thought was almost very detrimental for somebody who didn't deserve any flack at all is the person who was on the receipt, the employee whose name was on the receipt, was not
the person
culpable.
who,
Yeah, exactly. It was not the person who made the mistake. But of course, their name is there on the receipt, seen by all in their fit of outrage.
Oh, man. You see, you can't even be angry these days online, can you? You can't even rage. You might be raging at the wrong person. So apparently, too, that person has now been dismissed. Not the one on the receipt, the one who actually, wrote the comment. Does that resolve the issue? What do you reckon?
I guess we don't know. Is it more systemic of the culture of Ferg Burger, or was that just one person making a particular mistake? Because this is the thought process is they have such a turnover of customers,
right?
And they have so many people. And if you give a name like Josh,
yes,
and how many Josh has come through?
Sure.
So how do you differentiate between that Josh and
handsome Josh?
Well, thank you. If you do say so yourself, I'll give you that 20 later.
Yeah, exactly. Also, though, in some rebuttal of that position, I have been to Queenstown lately. I know how many Asian tourists there are in Queenstown.
Right.
You can't tell me that's very helpful.
Look, yes.
Should we just leave this painfully hanging in the air a little bit longer or move on?
A little bit of radio silence for the awkwardness of it.
Yeah, exactly. Here we go.
Eventually the alarm will go off, by the way. You realise that.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
That was also Josh's way of dealing with the anxiety that was building up inside of him. He had no concern about that alarm at all. I've worked with him long enough to know what's really going on inside that gorgeous, gorgeous mind.
Thank you.
So let's then now move to The Guardian. We're doing a bit of a world tour right now, and this is quite shocking, in fact. Possibly not a story you'd want to follow along with if you have any international flights in your immediate future. But the number one story, number one most viewed on The Guardian, actually comes to us via Toronto Airport. And so here is a video clip that inspired said article after a plane crash landed and flipped over.
Yeah, we've got it. The aircraft starts upside down and burning.
The fuselage of Flight 4819 lying on its roof at Toronto's Pearson Airport, the busiest in Canada. Video taken by passengers seconds after the crash gives a sense of their remarkable escape.
We just landed. Our plane crashed. It's upside down. Fire department's on site. We're upside down. Everybody, most people appear to be okay. We're all getting off. Some smoke going on.
This was taken inside moments earlier as passengers realised how lucky they were to escape with their lives.
I was just in a plane crash. Oh my God.
All 80 passengers and crew have survived, although there are reports of multiple injuries. 3 people are in a critical condition, one of whom is a child.
How remarkable, though, that 80 people, and all of them, have survived, at least up until now. I know 2 people are in a critical condition, and 1 child was taken in ambulance to a hospital.
We do actually have new footage that I don't know, unfortunately, if we have to show you right now on the stream, but just for an explanation of the actual crash itself. As you heard, the plane was upside down.
Yep.
And so it came in for a crash landing right way up. As it hit the tarmac, which was quite slippery from the snow,
right,
skidded and then rolled as it landed.
So it didn't go kind of nose over tail. It kind of went wing over wing, barrel roll.
It was,
right.
Yes.
Okay.
So still absolutely a horrific and terrifying moment, but less than if the plane came in upside down, shall we say.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And again, the good news being 80 people managed to effectively walk away. Well, a few might have been stretchered away, but, not exactly the story you want to be following along to if you've got any international travel planned in the next little while. But I can understand why that story was so popular on the Guardian website.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Now for the entertainment section of the show, and I've been forbidden from researching anything more about this particular topic.
Yeah, look, there's always a light and shade when it comes to trending, because these are the trending stories from the week that was, usually using Google Trends, but also, obviously, as we said, going to various international websites. This one was number 10 trending over the week that was. It's a new film out on Apple TV called The Gorge. Now, we've covered a multitude of various films and series within this segment. And I watched this trailer, Andrew, and I want those on the stream, or if you're listening to, listen along. I watched this trailer and I thought, okay, I see where this is going. I did not see where this was going.
Really?
So I'll let you react for the first time. I'll let the listeners and the watchers, by the way, you can watch rema.co.nz if you're looking for the stream. But yeah, this is the trailer for a new film called The Gorge.
All right, let us know your thoughts by either texting them through 8168 with the first word Rema, or throw them in the comments on our YouTube and Facebook Live pages. Buckle in, everybody. Here we go. Ooh, dramatic.
The Gorge. Trailer starts now.
Dun, dun, dun. The Gorge.
I have new orders that require me to go dark for at least a year, maybe more. A special assignment in an undisclosed location.
As an elite sniper, are you presently under any private or military contract?
No, there's not a lot of reasons for me right now.
What if I gave you a reason?
There she is. West Tower Observation Post. Your home for the next 365 days. There is no outside communication here.
What's that on the other side?
That is East Tower. Contact with the other side is strictly forbidden.
So what's the mission? To keep people from going in the gorge?
No. You need to stop what's in the gorge from coming out.
What the hell is that?
The gorge is the door to hell. And we're standing guard at the gate.
So there you go.
What? What?
I told you, you didn't know where it was going. It starts like any other normal trailer. It's got the dun,
action movie stuff. A
sniper rifle.
Another Black Ops operative.
We've seen a lot of espionage films as of late, but then they're guarding the
yes.
gorge, which is, as you heard, apparently the gateway to hell.
I mean, this movie may well be just that. Okay. What else do we know about this? It starts off, I mean, you get that feeling, of course, you've got a female operative on one side, you've got the male operative on the other side, so an unusual way to meet your significant other, but we assume that's going to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's been coined an espionage, sci-fi, horror, romance. Do you think you're doing too much?
I get the feeling someone got a bit excited. It's like, okay, so have you ever had a conversation with a toddler or just a young person who's learning how to tell stories?
Oh, yeah.
And then what happens is they start to notice that you're enjoying the story, and you realize the moment they think, oh, I'm getting some good response out of this, I'm going to start embellishing it. And the story becomes, and then what happened was, and then the man flew out of the sky, and then the plane exploded,
and then there was a lady in the other tower, and then in the valley was hell,
and then the monsters came out, but then the other man, I mean, it is very kind of, I got a whole bunch of preschoolers together, wrote down everything they said, and got money from Apple.
I will say, it's not reviewed that badly.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting cast too. I mean, it's got relatively big names in it.
Yes, Anya Taylor-Joy and
that guy who's got
Miles.
one of those something Teller.
Yeah,
I think it's Teller. He was in the Top Gun movie.
He was.
And Whiplash.
It is Miles Teller.
Hey yo. That's why they pay me the big bucks, relatively speaking. So, Sigourney Weaver as well.
Yep.
So she played an old lady. I'm sure she had another role than that, but that's what it came across like in the trailer. Okay, really the question comes down to this. Would you watch it or not?
Again, it's not reviewed too badly, and because it seems so ridiculous, it does intrigue me.
Yeah, I mean, the premise, they're really going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting because here's the gateway to hell. We've got 2 people guarding it.
Yeah.
I feel like if I knew where the gateway to hell was, at the very least, I would station more than 2 people. I just feel like that would be like Mission Operation 101.
Maybe a third, just one more, just for safety.
And, sorry, now I'm on this thing. You hear the guy say at the very start, there's no communication with the outside world.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want to know if something happened at the literal gateway to hell, according to this film? Wouldn't you want to know? Wouldn't you be like...
I would say the theology behind it is also a little skewed, but goodness me.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
I will not abide poor theology in a film.
Oh, goodness me.
That is the worst. What have we come to as a nation? Which, by the way, is something that other people were asking for all sorts of different reasons this week and leads us to a story that was number 13 in the country. So, within the top 20, certainly not one of the number 1 or number 2 stories. And I would say based on broader media coverage, I would say that's probably where it was placed in terms of its preeminence.
Well, you did actually ask right at the beginning of the show, Andrew, I think maybe even in the pre-show. If you want to join us for the pre-show, by the way, you've got to be watching on the stream, rema.co.nz if you want to find the links for the live stream, because this is a live viewing show, viewer show.
That's right.
Anyway,
no dead viewers allowed.
That's right. Mary got in touch when you asked, what do you expect to be in the trending results? And
yes.
She did say the protests against the gay pride events.
Well, yes and no, because there was a search term that was related, but it wasn't protests. It wasn't gay pride. It was, in fact, Destiny Church. Destiny Church was the number 13 ranked story or 13 ranked search term in the country over the last week. So if you have managed to completely bypass what this was all about, well done. You are very disciplined in your digital engagement because this story was everywhere. So first up, I found some footage from the actual event itself to provide a bit of broader context. There was a drag king, reading stories to babies, toddlers, and kids at the Aotearoa Community Centre Library, and a group of men and women from Destiny Church entered the library. Some reports say stormed the library. So, language is very important, to protest this. And now, if you are on the stream, you'll be able to see what it looked like. Even if you are only listening, the audio will give you a sense of the energy in the room, shall we say. So first of all, let's take a look at this.
You're not able to bring the signs in. You're welcome to come in if you can pick the library and put your sign. Thank you. Welcome. Facebook Rosie.
Sorry.
No,
not being anyone. It's a private event.
Now, just interrupting for a moment, because for those of you who are not able to view this yourself, the team that are performing the haka right now also have some signs up. One says, let kids be kids. Another says there are only 2 genders. A third sign says, say no to pride propaganda. So there you have it. That's a clip taken from those protests. The team from Destiny Church providing against this Pride Festival event at the Aotearoa Community Centre's Library.
Yeah, members of both Man Up and Legacy organisations, part of Destiny Church, targeted a number of Auckland Pride events over the week that was. The first was the Drag King reading stories to babies, toddlers and kids at Te Aotearoa Community Centre. As you mentioned, Andrew, a group of men and women stormed. This is reading from the article, by the way, on, I believe it was, give me just 2 seconds, Stuff.
Yep.
Just to make sure we...
cite the right places.
Exactly. It continues to say they pushed past staff. There were allegations of assault and staff had to barricade themselves. The kids and parents inside felt afraid, and the perpetrators also then did a haka.
Now, I should say the only organisation that I observed that did an actual interview with Brian Tamaki was on the platform. I saw Duncan Garner conducted an interview with Bishop Tamaki after the event so that he was able to state his position and as to why they got themselves involved. Here's the coverage from One News. Again, let us know your thoughts on this one too. If you've been following along with it, do you have a take on how this event was covered? The involvement of police, of library, of the media, of Destiny Church. This is what, a minute or so at least, of what One News had to say about it.
Of assault after members of Destiny Church stormed a Pride event at a community library in Auckland, forcing young children to hide. The protesters also squared off with officers during the city's annual Rainbow Parade. Despite widespread condemnation, church leader Brian Tamaki denies anyone was violent and insists the protests were peaceful. Yvonne Tahana reports.
No pot of gold at the end of the Rainbow Parade last night.
Really?
I thought that too.
Anyway.
Destiny Church members disrupting Tamaki Makoto's largest Pride event.
But where this group crossed the line yesterday in both events was there is a difference between freedom of speech and hate speech, and that was clearly what they had set out to do. They had clearly set out to intimidate, to bully, and to get their message of misinformation across.
Police estimated it took them 3 minutes to clear the protesters.
Just past the front of the protest, none of the rest of the participants even knew that there'd been a disruption.
But they're now investigating church members for their actions at a Te Aotearoa Rainbow event for children earlier on Saturday.
I said, go as peacefully as you can. We are peaceful protesters into the building. You've got a right to. They had tickets. You know, these people stepped out in front.
We respect people's right to free speech. We respect people's right to peaceful protests. They went too far.
But today, Destiny Church's leader was unrepentant.
I've gone too far in protecting my children? I doubt it. What I'm saying here is that they haven't gone far enough. This government needs to have some balls and begin to deal with the problem that we have in the Rainbow Pride community.
Calling on the PM to do a Trump and declare 2 genders.
Chris, you know, you need to do an Elon Musk with me.
This weekend follows on from targeted protests against rainbow initiatives around the country last year. The condemnation for their latest actions is growing, the mayor calling it thuggery. And at the big gay out today, others agreeing.
So to me, Man Up is the same. And also Tamaki and his goons on their motorbikes, they're a gang and they're patched. So why are they not on the list to be depatched as well? They're a cult.
Daphne Bush enjoying being herself and taking the long view of the church's actions.
Well, I think we've all just got to work together. And yeah, I mean, they've been doing it for years, doing it, protesting about everything. So I think now it's time we all just stand up for ourselves.
Nix was in the parade last night, here today to offer advice to Destiny Church.
Oh, stay in your lane. You know, like I say, we don't come to your church to protest. Don't bother coming out of yours.
In the face of challenge, Auckland's pride on display. Yvonne Tahana, One News.
So there you have the coverage from One News. I'm glad to see again that they did actually feature Brian Tamaki in person to get his thoughts on this event. But it has sparked some interesting discussion as well about the nature of protest in Aotearoa.
Yeah, feel free to have your say in this regards, by the way. This is a show where we want to hear from you, either in the chat if you're watching via the stream or, of course, 8168 with the keyword REMA. How did you react to not only the protest, but the coverage of the protest that has now come following the event itself?
Yeah, the issue of protest as well is a very interesting one. Now, we're going to try and address some of this actually tomorrow on the Rima Breakfast Show. We're going to have a chat with a theologian who particularly specializes in ethics, because it might shock you to know that protest is not specifically covered in the Bible. There aren't any verses about how you should conduct yourself at a protest, what you should even do at a protest, because really the early church had a big problem with, being sent to the Colosseum. So not so many protests in the early church history.
Oh, you don't like the emperor?
Yeah, game over for you. Now, look, our ability to protest, I believe at least, is a long-form result of the biblical principles that, especially around the worth of the individual, the ability for somebody to express themselves freely, that are founded in Judeo-Christian values. And of course, you can also take a look at biblical principles around speaking up for the oppressed, or standing against evil and making sure that you stand up for what matters. Don't be silent in the face of evil. So if you believe that there is something evil going on, are you not? In fact, is it not behoven to you to protest, to make sure your voice is heard? So I feel as though you were able to make a case for, protesting in any particular context. Is there a right or a wrong way? My general sense on this, because I feel it's unfair to ask you to say what you think without doing the same, I've often made a distinction between what we classify as a moral issue versus a wisdom issue. And let me clarify that. There are some very clear things in the Bible about what counts as a moral issue. For example, 10 commandments. Should I kill someone? Let me check. Hard no. Should I steal something? No, I should not. Should I covet what somebody else has? Very clear guidelines. There are other things, though, that the Bible tells us you've got to be careful around, because although they themselves may not be quote-unquote sinful, you can put yourself in compromising positions. So, for example, alcohol is one of those things. We know that the Bible warns what can happen if you drink too much. Of course, Jesus turned water into wine, so he wasn't saying that wine in and of itself is inherently sinful. But the Bible tries to tell you, although it is not a sin in and of itself, it's not a violation of an absolute moral principle, you need to be careful. And so when it comes to protests or these kind of things that fall outside of our more defined moral boxes, that is where I think we need to shift our attention.
Elizabeth has got in touch via the text, 8168, keyword REMA, by the way, R-H-E-M-A, to say, for a peaceful protest, and she's put peaceful in quotation marks, it was very loud and aggressive.
Well, you see, one of the counterpoints that has been made, and again, thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing your thoughts. You're welcome to also join with us today and let us know either in the chat or via the text. The counterpoint that was made about this goes all the way back to the Albert Park demonstrations when Parker Posey was here, the Speak Up for Women event. And it was also, dare I say, a trans-adjacent event. It was something that was specifically related to the presence of trans individuals and what that means in this case. Speak Up for Women, not a religious organization, but more a feminist organization concerned about men being let into women's spaces and what the effects for women might end up being. That event itself, also very loud, also very aggressive, also featuring assaults. Some have pointed out it is interesting that that event came and went without any suggestion that changes need to be made to our laws around public protest. However, this one has sparked those exact conversations. Will we see a change to the way that police interact with individuals at protests, or maybe what actions can legally be allowed and which ones are forbidden when you go to a protest event?
Yeah, feel free if you want to weigh in on this, like Elizabeth did, to let us know in the chat. I wonder if the difference here, Andrew, was particularly the quote-unquote storming of the library involved children.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, wherever children are involved, that's going to escalate the odds on things. Again, though, if I'm trying to look at how other events like these are portrayed publicly, you had literal assaults at the Speak Up for Women event. You had an older woman punched. Like, when they're talking about assault, I could be wrong. At this point, it seems to be the kind of assault that comes from pushing and shoving.
It's allegations of assault at this point in time.
Yeah, as opposed to, they full-on socked me in the face. That did happen and was caught on camera at the Speak Up for Women event. And then, of course, even the speaker herself, Parker Posey, had, I believe it was a can of soup or something poured over her. Dare I say, not all assaults are created equal. How's that for a spicy take for you on a Wednesday? So I don't know exactly how that's going to be resolved, whether or not pushing and shoving. I mean, technically it is an assault. Like that is an assault.
Yeah.
So that's true. If that did happen, you may well have some issues there. And as you identified there, Josh, the presence of children, that is going to escalate things even further. Was it the right thing to do? Was it the wisest thing to do? Should it have been done regardless of the public perception? Because, of course, if people don't agree with your views on things like transgenderism, I don't think there's any context in which they would say, yep, fair, Nick, that was a good protest, good on you. So let us know your thoughts once again. You can do it via the chat or via the text today.
8168 with the keyword REMA. That's how you get in touch via the text. Or if you're watching on the stream, just leave a comment below.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
And now for something completely different once again. We really are covering a lot of ground today, aren't we?
Well, look, this is the light and shade of trending because this is the premise of the show. This is what the Google Trends show us, at least in this context, are the stories that people wanted more information about.
Exactly right. And so one thing that we find consistently within New Zealand is our love of sport. It always peppers the, I was going to say the top 10, but it's probably the top 50, isn't it? Events from all around the world, but we thought this time around, just, for old time's sake, we would actually specifically address one particular search term that was the second most popular in the entire country. More than 50,000 searches for this one. Super Rugby.
Super Rugby, the competition has begun once again, and it seems as a nation of Aotearoa, New Zealand, we still love our rugby.
Funny that, because we've had discussions a few times about how popular sports events have or have not been. And, are you planning on following a lot of Super Rugby this year?
Look, my team is, although we lost against the Chiefs, the Blues have been doing well as of late. They won last year, and it's been a long time as a supporter that we haven't been very good. So I am inclined to watch, but there's so many things vying for your attention these days. To sit down and watch a 90-minute game. 90 minutes?
Yeah.
80 minutes.
Oh, 80 minutes.
80 minutes.
Yep.
It's a lot of time.
It is a lot of time. Do you have better things to do? Well, 50,000 people at least do not. So that's something.
That's not a judgment call.
Well, it kind of is. So there are many things we could have shown you for this one, but I'm going to share with you now one of my favorite genres of media. It is the sports captain media interview. These are a joy to behold. These poor guys, you'd imagine them all the way back when they were at school. They thought, I quite like rugby. Oh, it'd be great to play for the All Blacks one day. They devote themselves to training. They say no to the parties. They say no to the booze so they can keep themselves in good shape. They, work their way up through high schools, maybe a provincial team. They get picked for a super team. This is amazing. I'm on my way to the All Blacks. This is awesome. By the way, now you've got to do media interviews. Oof.
And media training.
Exactly. And so let's see how well Damien McKenzie did talking about the impressive start for the Chiefs. This was his conversation with Radio New Zealand Sport.
Apparently all the scoring is up on average for the first round for a long, long time. Can you put that down to anything?
Yeah, I guess a few rule changes around just the time of the ball at the base of the ruck, and I think it's just a great way to speed the game up. Teams are tiring, a lot more quicker. I mean, it is still round one. It's probably every team's not at their peak match fitness at the moment, so that could be a factor. But I think just the way the teams are playing.
I can't take any more of that. I can't do it. I thought I could watch more of it, but I just realised it blanked out already. Obviously a big fan of the right channel, by the way, at Radio New Zealand. And by that, I mean all the audio was on the right-hand side.
Well, they were playing some other audio from
then
the
you
game.
So?
I'm not true. I don't know why I'm defending
So?
them. Just give it the context.
We do that ourselves. We still find a way to overlap the audio instead of having them in one side or the other. Poor guy. You know what it is? There's some poor intern who's been sent out to a field somewhere with a microphone and a recorder and said, here you go, put this there, plug it in, press the button, go. And he'll be like, oh, okay. And then he came back and he went, oh, what have I done?
Too much focus on, this happens all the time. This is very much off topic.
Yep.
But when you're filming something,
yeah,
so much focus on the quality of the shot, the visuals. If your audio is trash, undercuts the entire thing.
Yeah. And especially, when you're interest in the topic itself is fleeting at best. I don't know, man. Has anyone ever learned anything worthwhile out of an interview like that? Is it your vibe? Look, I know I'm obviously nailing my colours to the mast, as it were, regarding my feelings on this matter, but do you love them? Are they your favourite? Do you look forward to them? Like, what's the appeal? I mean, I genuinely would want to know. I know it's going to sound like I'm very dismissive, and admittedly, I have to choke back a little bit of, instinctive, but 8168 with the first word Rima or jump on the chat. Because, I don't know, did you want to hear any more of that?
Well, it's interesting. I watched all of it preemptively before we got here.
Sure.
And what they're talking about, it kind of pertains to what you're talking about, because they're looking to make the game more entertaining. And this is the whole thing. It's like rule changes and how do we actually capture your attention? Because as former chief himself and now assistant coach David Hill said, we're in the entertainment business, which is very interesting.
Well, he's right, isn't he?
Really?
He really is.
Yeah.
In fact, I know a sport that you love and follow very, very closely, probably your favorite, the NBA, has experienced incredible reductions in its viewership. Something like 70-odd million people have tuned out.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the most recent, so the All-Star Weekend, which was a very big, moment, again, all about driving viewership and basically making money. The drop-off has been drastic, and so they tried to change it. They've made it a little mini tournament, but the comparison was it was about 30 minutes of game time and an hour and a half of ads in between, because it's all about trying to make this experience something that makes you money, and it's tanking.
Yeah, not doing well. So it's interesting too how much this bleeds over in my last thoughts on this one and how it might even relate to what you're watching right now. Many news services are discovering that you can't really just say to yourself, no, I'm in the news business. I will not sell you myself with this money nonsense. You might have actually heard in the headlines, I think at 12 o'clock, NZME getting rid of 40 people in their newsrooms because ultimately these are businesses, rightly or wrongly. Now, does that mean we're opening the door for some kind of, wealthy benefactor perhaps? I think CNN originally was founded by Ted Turner. The things that are in my mind, how do I know that? As a way of providing a news service. He bankrolled the thing when it started just because he saw a need for it. Of course, fast forward now, it's a fully commercially driven entity. I think actually Ted himself even disavowed CNN at some point in the not too distant past, rather. So how do we navigate this, right? We want the news, the pure and untainted, unbiased. You're missing all my air quotes, by the way, if you're not watching. Unbiased news.
News has never been unbiased. I want you to know that right now.
Touche.
Right here and now, even when it was the newspaper.
Yeah, it's all true, isn't it? So, what is the future of it all like? Are we just coming to terms with the fact that we are basically entertainment mediums competing with one another?
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Now, before we get on to our next story, Andrew, we did get a text in from Marty that says, hey guys, don't like the way that Destiny Church went about the protest, but do agree that we need to stand for God's morals and righteous way. And sodomy and introducing that to kids through drag queens is not right. We need to speak and stand up for our kids and stand against the evil that is influencing them. Yeah, so that was a text that came through just a couple of minutes ago from Marty.
Hey, thanks for that, Marty. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? That I know this is what kind of people wrestle with in these kind of spaces. If we disagree with something, what is the best way for us to voice our disagreement? Another follow-up question could be, do you think that protest had the effect that the protesters wanted?
Joss also got in touch via the stream. Hi, Joss. Thanks for watching. He says, as I understand it, the haka is traditionally a physical and spiritual weapon. Most Christians realize that we are in a spiritual battle, but non-Christians don't understand that. I admire Destiny Church for protesting, but protesters need to be peaceful, not aggressive. He put in capitals. I don't think Jesus would join a protest like that one.
Ooh, great thought. Thank you for sharing that with us. And again, you can keep those flowing. Now that you brought it up, Joss, let's talk about the different ways that hakas are covered, shall we?
Ooh.
Shall we talk about Waitangi?
Well, when it comes to... If you want to.
I'm just going to say, look, when it comes to political protest in this country, you remember in Parliament a little while ago, we had a haka demonstration against David
did
Seymour.
Indeed, didn't we? Yeah.
And people said that's aggressive, and people said, no, it's not. No, huckers are not aggressive. Huckers are just ways of expressing your view. Well, which one is it? It is one of my favorite categories of story, as Josh will know. It's a Rorschach test, isn't it?
Yep.
A Rorschach test, of course, referencing the ink blot test where you see what you want to see. If you agree with it, it was fine. If you disagree with it, it was terrible.
It says more about you and what you see rather than what is actually there.
100%.
Hey, another text coming through. Hi, my view on the Destiny Church and their actions is I feel they violated Romans 14. They imposed their beliefs onto somebody else, probably, in brackets, specifically non-Christians. How are their actions going to help folk understand their following and love? Understand they follow and love God when their actions are angry, bullying, aggressive, and not Christian-like.
Interesting. I mean, look, I know, I don't appreciate too that that thought being shared with us. This is the $1 million question for all of us, isn't it? What is the Christ-like response? What is the Christ-like response? I mean, to play, ironically enough, devil's advocate, or maybe it's God's advocate, I don't know. The point is this. You think about, say, how Jesus responded to the money changes in the temple. Was he always passive? No, he was not.
No, he was not, yeah.
However, you could also argue that, well, those were effectively people in his house, and he spent a much more time trying to sort out Christians, or rather religious people that were under his own umbrella. Didn't spend a lot of time getting into Romans' faces and telling them they weren't living the right way.
A lot of different thoughts coming in on this one. That's a really fascinating... Yeah, we talk a lot about what did happen. That's an interesting focus on something that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. So, again, keep those thoughts coming in for us this afternoon.
8168 with the keyword Rema. Love seeing your text come through. Or, of course, if you are watching on the stream, just like Joss. Hi, Joss, by the way. Feel free to leave a comment below.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
All right, got a few more minutes for our number one, baby. And by a country mile, I can tell you that this time around, this week at least, with over 100,000 searches, Valentine's Day. Love is in the air. I should have had that.
I was literally about to start singing Love is in the air.
Missed opportunity. Hang on. Occupy the people for a moment, will you?
Okay, so Valentine's Day obviously happened recently. We found a couple of stories, actually, two very opposing stories about Valentine's Day that were a part of the Google Trends. One was about why people are naming bugs, rats, and cats after their exes. And then another, quite on the opposite side, was about a Brazilian couple celebrating 84 years and 77 days of marriage.
Oh, you see, that's a story that I like.
That's the Love is in the Air story.
Love is in the air.
Man, we have done so much like...
Woo! What a roller coaster of emotions it's been. Yeah, look, and Valentine's Day as well, being one of those things. You see, I want you to know I wrestle with something within my own personality. In that I love generally being a little bit subversive, you might have detected. But at the same time, you got to be careful you don't fall too far into cynicism, don't you?
Yeah.
So when it comes to Valentine's Day, very easy to be like, what a load of nonsense. This was invented by Hallmark to sell cards. Or...
And you can say that because you're married. You're not a cynical singleton.
Well, this is the thing. When you hear it from a single person, you're like, yeah. Sure. All right. However, it is somewhat fashionable, I find, and in a tragic way, Josh, for people to say, Valentine's Day. Oh, we don't do anything for Valentine's Day. I haven't even looked at my wife in 15 years. Have you met these people?
Yes.
You know who I'm talking about, don't you? Oh, yeah, it's good for you now. How long have you been married? Like 10 minutes? Oh, when you're my age, you throw pans at each other's heads.
This was a genuine... I know you're being hyperbolic, but this was a genuine quote I heard from somebody in my life. Oh, we've been married, like 14 years. You don't worry about Valentine's Day when you've been married that long.
Okay. So what else? What do you do? Oh, nothing. Smooth. Smooth. Now, look, I'm not suggesting you all have to indulge in buying chocolates and going out for expensive dinners and so on. But look, take it from a guy who's only been married 5 years, if you will. But just don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. It's really weird. I don't know why people boast on skipping over this stuff like it doesn't matter at all.
Do we have enough time
for 3 minutes. Go.
My Japanese fun fact about Valentine's Day?
But we will make the time.
Okay, so Valentine's Day, on Valentine's Day, the tradition is for women to buy men chocolate.
Cool.
And there is various types. There is soulmate chocolate, that is for your love. There is friendship chocolate.
Ooh, friend zone chocolate.
No, because it gets even worse.
Oh, okay. Ooh, okay.
There is one that is obligation chocolate. So friendship chocolate, at least, there's some sort of friendship here. Like I am actually expressing you're my friend.
Yep.
But the way they go about it is, here is your obligation chocolate, because in Japan we go, we have to do this. And so I've given you chocolate.
Oof. Does it correspond with an increased level of like self-harming? Because I imagine
feelings? Yeah.
Bam! Yeah, you know what though?
Speaking of the friend zone.
Yeah. I'm talking myself around on this though.
Yeah.
Because here's the one thing, ladies, if I may be so bold, as you know, I'm prepared to give you my opinions and, damn the consequences. If there's one thing that the ladies struggle with sometimes, it's giving guys a clear no way. The number of times I've heard someone talk about this guy at church who's, he's really keen and every time I'm around it, and I've tried this and I've tried that and just for some reason he won't get the hint. I said, stop with the hint.
A clear?
Between the
no,
eyes.
Thank you.
Take him out the back, load the shotgun.
No.
Metaphorically speaking. Sorry, got to be clear about this these days. We don't have shotguns anymore. They gave them all back after the... Anyway. Obligation chocolate would do the job.
Yeah.
Like if you are like, maybe she's keen and she's like, obligation chocolate, you're like... The real question then, Josh, do you eat the chocolate?
As you cry.
Why did you get me salted caramel? It was just normal caramel. Oh. Devastating. Absolutely devastating.
We did get one more comment in from Anusha. Probably don't, unfortunately, have time to get too deep into it, but I will say she said, I think in today's time we need to show love, and people will not want to read the Bible. They who don't want to read the Bible read our lives. I don't agree with Destiny Church and what they did. The Bible asks us to pray. Let's pray for one another. Prayer, prayer, prayer in the church, in your home, and in your closest relationships. Pray.
So pray, and as we heard from the great prophet John Paul Young, get a little bit of love in the air, everybody. Come on, get up and move around in the 10 seconds we have left in the show today.
Love is in the air.
And do something lovely for somebody close to you. Come on, you cynical old thing. You know I'm talking to you. Come on. Tell your wife you love her, for goodness sake. It's been 15 years. She might have forgotten. Don't become a cynic about this kind of stuff. You can hold me accountable to it.
I need to send a text, excuse me.
Hey, thanks everybody for being a part of Trending for today. And again, lovely to hear your thoughts as well coming through. You're always welcome to share them with us. We're looking to build a bit of a community here as we do the show. So that is our lot for today. Again, my thanks to Josh Beatty.
My thanks to you, Andrew.
And to our technical team, especially Owen. Again, you're the MVP. You might never meet Owen, everybody else, but trust me, we love him. We wouldn't be here without him. And we wouldn't be here without you. So we'll catch you next week for another edition of Trending. I'm Andrew Curtis, and I love you.